This program was made possible by a grant from the Rasmussen Foundation, with additional funding by the Alaska Committee and the Friends of the Alaska Governor's Mansion Foundation.
I'd say it's a different building from any building I've ever seen anywhere else in Alaska.
And it's very stately, and I think it's a lovely house. It looks a little bit like something out of Gone with the Wind on a much smaller scale. It just had a quiet elegance that I think people enjoy.
It's a large house, but I would not call it a mansion.
When you walk through the door the first time you go, in your mind, wow, this is nice.
This distinctive three-story White House on the hill above downtown Juneau belongs to the people of Alaska. But without someone to call it home, this house is just another pretty building. Every 4 years, Alaskans vote to decide who gets to live here.
This house has a great deal to do with Alaska history. Since 1912, we've had 9 governors appointed by the President of the United States live here, as well as all of the elected governors and their families since statehood. With each governor and first lady that come to the house and reside here with their families, they are creating a new chapter in the history of the state of Alaska and this house.
One of those new chapters was a unique gathering. In an historic first, 6 of Alaska's first ladies since statehood joined together at the same time in the governor's house in Juneau. For anyone visiting a place that was such an important part of their lives, the first ladies toured, talked, and shared stories.
I live in Douglas now. I know.
But the furniture was very different. I like what you've done.
Well, these were upstairs. I brought them from the upstairs.
Wow, this is completely different.
I used it as an office.
So did Emily. But when we were
This was a guest room with twin beds.
there was this like transportable kitchen in the middle of the reception area.
Now this will probably be all new to you.
This is where Dorothy Green used to have a
Dishes. Yes, that's what I understand.
But then wasn't it just one big room in those
Yes.
days?
I didn't realize there was so much room up here.
These 6 first ladies' lives in the governor's house span the length of Alaska state history. While headlines centered on their husband's role in state events, the first ladies' experience in the governor's house show another side of history. For example, Alaska's first lady after statehood was Neva Eakin. Back then, she did the grocery shopping for the house.
One day afternoon, the box boy was putting the groceries in the trunk of the car, and he looked down and saw the number 1 license plate. And he looked up at me and he says, "Are you the governor's old lady?" And I said, "Yes, I guess that's my title."
Bill Egan was the first elected governor after statehood in 1959. In addition to helping organize the new state, he dealt with the effects of the 1964 Good Friday earthquake. Egan served a 3rd term in the early 1970s. The second First Lady was Irma Lee Hickel. Famous aviator Charles Lindbergh was once the Hickel's guest at the governor's house prior to addressing a joint session of the Alaska legislature.
He asked if he could get his pants pressed. And I said, "Oh, certainly, I'll take care of that right now." Well, I knew there wouldn't be anybody in the house but me. But he thanked me kindly. He thought the housekeeper, the maid, had done it, and I didn't let him know any differently. And I thought to myself, oh, my wildest dreams. I never dreamed I'd be the wife of a governor, certainly not living in the governor's house, and then pressing Charles Lindbergh's pants. I couldn't believe it.
Walter Hickel was elected governor in 1966. The North Slope Discovery Well was drilled during his first term. Hickel served a second term in the early 1990s. Bella Hammond became First Lady in 1974. She and one of her daughters once had trouble getting back into the governor's house when Bella realized she had taken the wrong key and couldn't unlock the door.
Of course, I was standing out on the back porch waiting for her to work her way in. She came flying out the door, let it shut. She said, I just shut the window and locked it, and then she stopped because she let the door shut behind her, and here we were really locked out.
Jay Hammond served as governor from 1974 to 1982. During his term, the Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline was completed, and the Permanent Fund and dividend programs were established. Michael and Steve Cooper moved into the governor's house with their 5-month-old son, Wade, in the mid-1980s. Like other first children, Wade celebrated birthdays there.
The first birthday, we moved the table back, or I guess it was moved all the way back, and we put Visqueen all over the rug. We put it in the center of the Visqueen, and the kids all crawled into the cake and just put their hands in it and all ate it. It was really cute.
Steve Cooper was elected governor in 1986. The Exxon Valdez oil spill in Prince William Sound occurred during his term. Susan and Tony Knowles brought 3 children when they moved into the governor's house in 1994.
There are literally thousands of memories, many of which involve my children, growing up here. We had the soccer net in the yard, so, there was always a lot of activity going on there.
Tony Knowles served as governor from 1994 to 2002. During his term, Canadian fishermen blocked a state ferry, and Alaska instituted high school exit exams. Nancy Murkowski brought 22 years of experience as the wife of a U.S. Senator to the position of First Lady when her husband Frank was elected governor.
When we came in and we had our inauguration, our whole family, all of us were here. And we have 6 kids, and 13 grandchildren. I think we only had 12 then. But everybody came and spent the night at the house.
Frank Murkowski was elected governor in 2002. During his administration, oil prices hit record highs. Each First Lady is only a temporary resident in the governor's house, but during their time, each has accepted responsibility for the care of this unique Alaska home.
This is the people's house. This house belongs to every single person in Alaska. It's my house too. I'm a citizen of Alaska. And we all want to be proud of the place in which we live.
Those who have only seen the outside of the governor's house may be surprised at what's behind the front door. The first floor is the public part of the house for dinners, receptions, and scheduled tours. Neva Egan found the reception room table discarded in the basement.
It was this beautiful old round table, and it looked as if people had cleaned their paintbrushes on it. And I had it refinished, and it's a beautiful table, and it's been the site for the guest book ever since.
The ballroom was used to host USO dances during World War II. 2 Chippendale chairs are the oldest pieces of furniture in the house. The chandeliers and piano were part of the original house inventory.
Well, sometimes when I'm waiting for Frank to come home for dinner and I'm finished with my work upstairs and I'm, just have 10 minutes, I'll come down and flip through some old music and just play.
The original seal of the District of Alaska, now visible above the fireplace, had been hidden behind plaster for years. It was finally discovered during the 1983 house renovation. The library remains a popular spot for relaxing and catching up on paperwork. The conservatory is where the First Family eats most of their meals when there are no guests. Large dinners and receptions are held in the formal dining room.
During the busiest time, we might have had 5 events in a week, which is a lot. When consider how much goes into putting together an event.
Food preparation is done in a modern commercial kitchen. As a result, this is the one room in the house without a 1912 look. A small office near the house entry is now used by the house manager. Long ago, it was called the convincing room, as house manager Karen Newton recalls the story.
Each governor would bring a guest in to this room, and they would close the door, and they would bring their beverage in with them and their cigar. By the time they emerged, the person was always convinced, evidently. So this was called the convincing room for a number of years.
The second and third floors of the governor's house are private and seldom seen by the public. This is where the first family lives. A large hall at the top of the stairs serves as an entry to the other rooms. The second floor guest bedroom is an example of house history. The dresser, desk, and chair were all on the original house inventory. The master bedroom is more modern and more spacious. The First Lady's office is located on the second floor, and the governor also has a home work area in these private quarters. The third floor was originally going to be a territorial museum. Unused for years, the space was later renovated into bedrooms.
The third floor is where our three children had their bedrooms. Two of the bedrooms also have sitting rooms associated with them, and there aren't too many people who have sitting rooms, attached to their bedrooms. Certainly not too many teenagers that do.
The original 1912 governor's bed, along with original dressers, is located in one bedroom. The West Suite is where Charles Lindbergh stayed when he was a guest of the Hickles.
I think if you live here and you walk around, you can't help but feel you are really living in history and making history at the same time.
The governor's house has new residents each time a new governor is elected. And each new First Lady enters a very public life herself. Most of them didn't know exactly what being Alaska's First Lady really meant.
I didn't have a clue. And nobody does have a clue. The only person who can tell you what it's like to be a First Lady is another First Lady.
Surprising in that it was a lot more work and a lot more travel than I had anticipated. Emily Hickel, for instance, told me that I was going to be busier than I ever had been, and she was absolutely right.
I think one of the hardest things about it is that there are so many opportunities, so many good causes that one can get involved in, and it's just hard to sort them all out.
No, I didn't know exactly, but you can certainly imagine of what it was going to be, and it didn't bother me.
At the same time new First Ladies were learning about their new roles, they also had to move into and make a home in the governor's house. That also required some adjustment.
It took me a while to get used to was the sounds. I'd hear voices that were actually people passing out front, but it sounded like they were in the house. And I wasn't used to that because living in a small community, in the evening, you just don't hear things like that.
There were some times when it felt like a great big place. But because we made our home on the second floor, it's almost as though you didn't think about being in the whole house. And then we had this kitchen that we could come down to and raid the refrigerator.
This is your home, and you want to run it like your home. You don't want to be on a strict schedule and do things because you think you have to. You want to do things because you want to.
Once settled in the governor's house, Alaska's First Ladies adjusted to their new surroundings, and each took up causes they pursued while serving as First Lady. Projects have included reading, keeping children alcohol-free, volunteerism, literacy, breast cancer detection, and more. Many also raised their children in this house. Neva Egan's son, Dennis, who later was elected Juneau's mayor, grew up in the governor's house and got an early start on his radio career.
And he set up, in his bedroom upstairs, he set up a little radio station, and the neighbors complained his was the only station they could get. And I hadn't realized he was broadcasting. I thought he was just in there, you know. Well, he was having a great time.
The first family's children, like kids everywhere, invited their friends over. Susan Knowles remembers her youngest daughter, Sarah, hosting slumber parties.
This room was covered with sleeping bags. It was a huge, pajama party. And then, for breakfast, they go into the dining room, which, seats 20 odd, and they have their breakfast.
Susan Knowles said rules were established as to what their children could do on the house's first floor, the public section of the house. One rule developed because her son liked hockey.
He and his friends liked to play knee hockey, which is playing with these small little sticks and some sort of a puck. Well, I'm not going to report which window got broken, but there was soon developed a rule that was not allowable on this floor.
Michael Stewart told a story about her young son, Wade, and the Harriman Bowl. The bowl was given to the governor's house to commemorate the 1899 Harriman expedition to Alaska.
When we first arrived and someone came over to take some pictures, suggested that we put Wade in the punch bowl. It was a great shot. We got chastised by the Alaska State Museum for having done that because we weren't supposed to touch it with anything but gloves on. I didn't know. Nobody told me.
The Hammonds brought a small dog with them when they moved into the governor's house in 1974. Sparky weighed just 8 or 9 pounds.
The funniest picture is Jay would walk him once in a while because here, you had to put him on a leash. And here's this big hulk of a fellow with a big down jacket on, and you'd see this tiny little thing on a leash. And I was out walking him one time, and this young fellow looked down his nose and said, "Is that the governor's dog?" I was insulted because just the way he said it.
The largest public event in the house is the governor's holiday open house. Preparations begin months ahead of the event. Thousands line up outside, waiting to go inside, to greet the governor, lieutenant governor, and their wives, eat holiday cookies, and walk through the first floor.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Happy holidays, one and all.
The house is used throughout the year for receptions, dinners, award ceremonies, and more. Construction of the Alaska Governor's House began in 1912 after Congress appropriated $40,000. The first public function was a New Year's open house on January 1st, 1913. President Warren Harding spoke from the veranda in 1923. Exterior changes to the original house were made in 1936. 2 additional columns were added, as well as a portico to accommodate cars. The governor's totem pole, that rises nearly the height of the house, was carved during the winter of 1939-40 as a CCC project. The house was placed on the National Register of Historical Places in 1976. In 1983, the entire interior was renovated to reflect the house's original look. During the 1990s, the 3rd floor and kitchen were completely remodeled. The governor's house has 14,400 square feet, 25 rooms, including 6 bedrooms, and 8 working fireplaces. The new state accepted ownership of the house in 1959, after nearly 50 years of federal control. Neva Egan found lots of problems when she moved in.
The house needed repairing. The water pipes were leaking all over the house. We had to put in all new water pipes. It was shabby, and we had to replace the columns, the front columns. and we had to put a new roof on, you know, basic things that had to be done.
Other First Ladies face similar problems trying to stay ahead of repairs and maintenance on the house. Emily Hickel remembers electrical problems.
The cords running around doorways and that type of thing. And if we would have guests over, like say for breakfast, and you'd plug in a couple of electrical appliances in the kitchen, then you'd have to take the coffee pot to another plug-in someplace else.
The Alaska Governor's House is approaching 100 years in age. Each First Lady dealt with house maintenance problems as best she could with limited state funding. Ironically, it was Bill Sheffield, the only elected governor without a First Lady, who made the most significant changes to the house since its 1912 construction. In 1983, Sheffield, a widower, renovated the entire house at a cost of $2.3 million. The 1983 renovation included basics like plumbing, heating, electrical, and security. In addition, cosmetic changes like furniture, rugs, and paint returned the house to its original 1912 look. When Nancy Murkowski moved into the governor's house in 2002, she, like the First Ladies before her, realized the house needed constant and extensive repairs. She's working to raise additional funds to supplement state appropriations, and she's confident the 1912 house has a long future.
Well, the problems that the house is facing is southeast weather. The rain and the moisture are really taking their toll on an older wooden house. And this happens all over the state. But no, I think in general, if we do the maintenance well, as we should be doing, this house will last forever.
The Alaska Governor's House has a good start on lasting forever. It's already been here since 1912. All but half a dozen states provide housing for their governor. Many houses look similar, like a smaller version of the White House, with large columns and expansive grounds. The Alaska Governor's House, however, has less grounds and is more accessible because it sits next to public walks and roads and is surrounded by neighborhood homes. In fact, only a small hedge separates the public sidewalk from the private house grounds. Every day, Juneau residents and visitors pass right by the house. The front door is only a few steps from the public walk. Of course, that door remains locked and the house has modern security systems, but it wasn't always like that.
We didn't even lock the doors.
You didn't lock the doors to the governor's house when you came in?
No.
The Hickles locked the doors, but Irma Lee remembered one night when the door didn't get shut tight after guests had left for the evening.
Sleeping upstairs in their beds, I could hear this running upstairs, or this noise. So we sort of sat up in bed wondering what was happening. Then the door, our bedroom burst open, and some police came running in, and they were throwing these flak jackets or whatever they had. Here, grab these, put them on. They thought maybe someone had broken into the house. So they went all the way through it. And of course, no one was there. But we were more careful after that to make sure the door was locked.
The close public access to the house and grounds means those passing by may unexpectedly meet the governor or first lady, whether they know it or not. Connie Stewart Moss was house manager when Bella Hammond was first lady.
She'd put her Levi's on and her rubber boots, and she had a rubber cap that she put on her head. You know, she'd be out there even working in the rain, and more than once people would come by and talk to her, and they thought they were talking to the gardener, and it just tickled her to think, you know, that they thought she was the gardener and not the governor's wife.
If it was warm and it was nice weather and we were sitting out here, there's a balcony that runs along the side of the house. Sometimes people would call up from the street. So you'd wave, hi!
I've walked out and had people, you know, ask me if the governor was home, and I'll say no, but can I tell you something about the house? You know, people are interested, and I like people, so I just go along with it and tell them a little bit about
what the house is like and that sort of thing. And they're always amazed when they say, and who are you? And I say, I'm the First Lady.
Alaska's First Ladies have made significant contributions to the state through public support of charities and projects, and not the least through their enduring personal link to the house they call home, the Alaska Governor's House.
We never forgot that it was the people's house.
That's right.
And we were privileged to live here. But what a privilege.
It's a beautiful building. It was well done, well thought out.
You have stewardship of the residents. You are a tenant and you live here, and that's a very nice perk, as it were, but you are merely a guest.
I think it's a certain warmth and a welcoming quality that really distinguishes it.
It just seems like a dream in a way, but it really was a privilege living here and being here. And I'm just proud of that time in history. People coming in are very impressed. And I've heard a lot of comments from people out, who live on the outside that say, it's a wonderful house, and it is. It's a family's house.
This program was made possible by a grant from the Rasmussen Foundation, with additional funding by the Alaska Committee and the Friends of the Alaska Governor's Mansion Foundation.